exponential technology domain and rising awareness on trending hot topics such as blockchain technology, data science, AI and ML, cybersecurity, cloud computing, metaverse, fintech, robotics, digital transformation and many more.
Join the second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology from 5th to 8th March 2022. Proudly organized by MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence India. Visit mitfuturesskills.org/WFET or call on 7066995599. Transform yourself into a winning professional.
Greetings of the day to one and all. This is Suruchi and I'll be the host for the session. On behalf of MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, it is my pleasure to welcome all the esteemed guests and enthusiastic participants from all parts of the globe. This is the second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology, a unique celebration of the wonderful Internationals Day program with global women tech influencers. At the outset, let me welcome our lovely keynote speaker, Ms. Neha Dhyani,
Recording
Senior
in progress.
Security Consultant, Nokia, Melbourne, Australia. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Suruchi. It's a pleasure to be here.
MIT Art, Design and Technology believes in starting every journey of knowledge by seeking blessings from Goddess Saraswati. May I request you all to please join your hands for the session. Thank you very much. The MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, under the guidance of MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, is proud to bring on one platform, women who are world motivators in technology. The second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology is an attempt to salute women who influence and motivate and create awareness on the power of emerging technologies and career growth. To know more about the initiative, I'm pleased to introduce to you Professor Suraj Bhuyar, Project Director, MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence. Professor Bhuyar is a passionate digital evangelist at MIT ADT University. A postgraduate in mechanical engineering, patents law, and in educational administration, he is keen to develop an ecosystem for nurturing skill development as well as employability. His dynamic role in getting future skill training for career aspirants make him confident to build an enterprising and innovative India. He dreams to reshape the lives of students and working professionals via excellence in future exponential technologies, which will have a strong technological impact in tomorrow's economy. With an exponential learning curve and amazing networking skills, his dream is to lead the Ministry of Higher and Technical Education for better industry-institute interaction ecosystem development. May I please request Sir to address the participants?
Thank you, Suruchi. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to one and all. Happy International Women's Day. It is my great privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to the fourth day of second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology. proudly organized by MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence. This is immensely exciting morning for MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, and the active participation of all the delegates from different corners of the world affirms the relevance and meaningfulness of this International Women's Day celebration. With this, let me first acknowledge the presence of our eminent guest today. It is indeed an honor to have amongst us chief guest of today's keynote session, Neha Dhyani, Senior Security Consultant, Nokia, Melbourne, Australia. Welcome you, ma'am. I also take this opportunity to welcome our Honorable Executive President and Vice Chancellor of MIT ADT University, Professor Dr. Mangesh Karat, sir. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Your presence means a lot to us. I would also like to welcome Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Anand Chakradev, for being with us today. Thank you so much, sir. I welcome Dr. Ramakant Kaple, Director IQAC, Professor Dr. Sunita Karad, ma'am, Dean, Management and Director ICT, MIT ADT University. I am also taking this opportunity to welcome Dr. Mahesh Chopde, Registrar, MIT ADT University. We are also delighted to welcome all the deans, directors, principals, HOIs, HODs, faculty members, delegate, and the members of organizing team, MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence. Thank you so much for joining us today. My dear friends, the higher education institution often struggle to or thrive in direct response to the changes in socio-economic sector. And ideas of what higher education should accomplish can mostly depend on what world demands of an educated and skilled workforce. At MIT Art, Design and Technology University, Pune, we have been mapping our resources best to adopt strategic approaches to the emerging technologies and best digital learning experience to our stakeholders. MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence has been established to create a strong community of smart and employable tech enthusiasts with super specialized expertise in artificial intelligence, machine learning, cyber security, cloud computing, blockchain technology, robotic process automation, Internet of Things, enterprise resource planning, digital marketing, etc. Technology is gradually influencing every element of our work, and this tendency will undoubtedly continue in every industry as evidenced at the peak of the pandemic and the post-pandemic situation. And having solid levels of expertise in this emerging technology domain is definitely going to be a game changer for every one of us. And to be more versatile and ready for future, it's essential to build all of us to work on our IT skills. And we are very much determined to assist you in this endeavor. So MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, India brings together the top tech, global influencers, women leaders in exponential technology domain, so that they could let you know about the hot trending topics of cyber security, digital transformation, artificial intelligence, data science, and etc. The summit, being international, is full of synergy of information, knowledge, and wisdom. And with the aim of equipping stakeholders, MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence pursues upskilling and upgrading as one of its primary objectives. Following the resounding success of our first international virtual summit last year, the second one this year will provide a more engaging platform. And we have been experiencing all this, right? We have been exploring various aspects about emerging technology through our discussions, interactions during the Power Pack session on day 1, day 2, and day 3 of this international summit. So to unfold yet another important concern about cybersecurity is endpoint security. And who could be the better keynote for this? So in this keynote session, Ms. Neha Dhyani, we will be exploring about the foundational and modern aspects of endpoint security. Let us explore various attacks on popular proof of work so that we could understand how businesses are being affected. And my dear friends, today, an increasingly mobile workforce and the explosion of organizational data and applications in the cloud have expanded the attack surface beyond the traditional network perimeter, right? Again, threat hunting can be a proactive process that looks for abnormal activity, because threat hunters search for anomalies on the servers and other endpoints, right? And cyber attacks, my dear friends, have become increasingly targeted and complex due to more sophisticated pieces of malware being leveraged and the increasing threat of professional cyber organizations. These cyber criminals are attempting to steal valuable data such as intellectual property, personal identifiable information, health records, financial data, and resorting to highly profitable strategies such as monetizing data access through the use of advanced ransomware techniques. Right? So, without further ado, let me request our keynote speaker, Ms. Neha Dhyani, to take it over, and we are looking forward to listening to your thoughts, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Suraj sir. I mean, it's pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be part of MIT ADT University. First of all, I would like to thank all the team members. You are doing a great job in terms of empowering the youth of today's India and globally. So it's an honor to be here, and I'll do my best to serve our audience today.
Yes, so, thank you, ma'am. Over to you, Suruchi, for a brief introduction. Yes.
Thank you so much. So 2020 was an unprecedented year for security teams in the global health crisis. The threat situation is evolving as malicious attackers quickly adapt to changing environments and find new ways to exploit the vulnerabilities. Now, more than ever, it's more important to protect people at the endpoints. Wherever they are, whichever device they are at, should be noted. Today's session will talk about endpoint security. We are honored to have with us Ms. Neha Dhyani, Senior Security Consultant, Nokia, Melbourne, Australia. But before we pass on the session, may I please request the technical team for the AV.
Ms. Neha Dhyani is a result-oriented cybersecurity leader with 16 years of rich experience in security, pre-sales management, network and information security, telecom security, solutions architect, cloud security architect, security product management, and consultancy. She is a cybersecurity mentor and women empowerment advocate and is presently working with Nokia, Melbourne, Australia as a senior security consultant. Neha defines herself as a passionate and continuous learner into the exciting cyber world. Her domain expertise lies in solution consultancy, which includes telecom security, architect solutions for the next-gen SoC infra, cloud security, and endpoint security solutions. She has a vast consulting experience in managing global and domestic customers across different industry verticals. She strongly believes in giving back to the society and is associated with few security communities which help in mentoring and guiding youngsters. The team, MIT Center for Future Skills Excellence, MIT ADT University, Pune, is honored to have Ms. Neha with us today for the second International Virtual Summit on Women Frontiers in Exponential Technology.
Thank you so much. The stage is all yours now, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much, Suruchi, for that warm welcome. Really appreciate that. With that, let's get started. So I hope all the participants can see my screen. And as Suruchi mentioned, the agenda for today's session is leave your legacy behind. And it's really the time to modernize the endpoint security. And the agenda that I have kept for today's discussion is before I do a deep dive, I'll talk about some of the key challenges. Some of them were briefly talked by Suraj sir as well during his introduction. So what are the typical drivers of transforming endpoint security, and what are the effective ways of doing threat hunting, and what are the key frameworks that exist today, MITRE being one of them. And then towards the end, we'll talk about some of the key takeaways. So with that, let's talk about, when we talk about security breaches, let's understand, what are these implications which are associated with the security breach. Now, every now and then we hear news about, the business disruptions which are caused by the security breaches, whether it is a ransomware kind of an attack, whether it was a SolarWinds kind of a, breach that we heard about, for shell kind of an vulnerability that existed. And then what it is all kind of leading to, this is all kind of leading to bad publicity, reputation loss, financial loss, increased capex and opex. And if I really want to convert this into the stats, these are some of the figures that we are talking about. We are talking that, there are, close to 48 breaches. And when I talk about these breaches, there are, these are being existing within the organizations, like for as long as, 9 months plus kind of a persistent. Okay, when we are talking about these breaches, we are talking about close to 3.92 million of the average cost of a data breach. This is too much for an organization. And if you look at how these breaches are severely impacting the organization, when it comes to investigating these kind of a breaches, the dwell times in knowing that how long this attack has been within my environment, this is coming as close as 78 days. So this is huge. And if you look at from an investment perspective, there are from a security perspective, organizations are spending huge 75 number of security products which are being starting from endpoint security, perimeter security, gateway level security, multiple levels of security are components and the products are in place. But still, every time what we see is a lot of security gaps which are leading to the security breaches. And then we really need to understand that what's going wrong out here. What are the actually the factors that really inhibits these security breakthrough. So these are some of them, when it comes to endpoint security. Okay, the endpoint security today is more seen as a bolted on approach. When I say bolted on approach, it means that all these endpoint security tools and the softwares which are in place, it could be your personalized firewall, your antivirus, your HIPS, your multiple solutions, they are bolted on. There are too many agents, there are too many products which are being installed on enterprise-wide laptops, desktops, applications, but none of them are talking to each other. We just keep adding each and every tool one after another without even integrating with the rest of your security stack. Then what we see is a siloed kind of an approach. Your endpoint security tool may be managed by a desktop class team, whereas your SOC being managed via a different SecOps kind of a team. And then you have your application security team, which is managing the security of your critical crown jewels. So again, there are different teams, which are working in silos rather than having it to be, I would say, a team sport kind of a thing. And then the third factor that really inhibits the security breakthrough is the threat-centric approach. Today, we are more and more focused on, the threats which are happening within our environment. Okay, we are not at all, looking at it from a context perspective that, how it happened, where it happened, at what hour of that day it happened, is it, what application relevance does it have, the specific threat which has happened within my environment. So they are more and more reactive. Okay, that really needs to be transformed. For endpoint security to be effective, the bolted-on approach has to be migrated to a built-in kind of an approach, a solution which is built in within my environment. Rather than being it to be a part of a siloed approach, it has to be part of a unified approach. Meaning whichever solution I go for across my environment, it has to be a part of my unified security operations center. And then rather it to be a threat-centric kind of an approach, it rather has to be a context-centric approach, so that I get an overall context of what are the threats which are happening within my environment, so that I can create playbooks around it and I can control it in a better way. Now, to enable the modern SOC, the modern security operations center and endpoint security plays a critical part in it. We really need to understand what are the key drivers behind it. We really need to invest in security solutions which can be in multiple forms, tools like your EDR, endpoint detection and response, network detection and response, extended detection and response. We really need to have a visibility which goes beyond your typical next-gen antivirus, because we really need to understand that what's happening within my environment. Because nowadays what we see, the attack vectors which are increasing within my environment, they are more behavioral based. So we need that behavioral based analytics within my environment, so that rather than just understanding and looking at the signature, I can see that if there is a breach that happens within my environment, which is leveraging the trusted tools which are trusted by my operating system, something like PowerShell, WMI, how my internal solution is going to take care of that. I should have a complete telemetry to understand that, what went before the attack, during the attack, after the attack, so that, at any point of a kill chain, I should be able to shut down that attack. And then it's really important to upskill our skills, the SOC analyst staff, the one which is kind of managing it. We really need to automate the critical processes like threat hunting. So then, rather than it becoming afterthought, rather than that becoming a reactive process, it becomes more and more automated and a more and more proactive process. And then integrating it with the industry frameworks like micro attack really makes it very, very easy to understand the TTPs, attackers' TTPs, tactic techniques and procedures. And then looking on from advanced capabilities like script reveal and sandboxing for zero-day kind of an attack. This is really very important in today's environment, because the way the attacks are being framed, if there is a zero-day kind of an attack for which no signature exists, or for which, if there are some encoded script, now attackers are playing these base 64 encoded script, these encoded script within the customer environment. And if I don't have that capabilities to decode these scripts on the fly, my environment will be totally compromised. So we need to have these capabilities from the endpoint security perspective, so that we can understand the behavior of these malicious script within my environment, and then take an action against them. And then the critical part is, it is not just looking at these solutions, but as I said, that it has to be a part of your overall security stack. If you have an endpoint security solution in place, it should talk to your firewall. It should talk to your existing SIM or source solution which is in place, so that when we are integrating, or when we are looking at a holistic picture from a dashboard perspective, I should have a complete visibility that it started from your endpoint, it was detected at your firewall, and then it was the SIM and SOAR integration that comes into play to take the next steps. So that's where we need to define these automated security playbooks, integrate with your SIM-SOAR and the ticketing tool, so that the different teams can be alerted simultaneously. And then definitely security has to be a continuous security monitoring process. It cannot be a one-way defined process where I define something and then forget tomorrow. So important part is that we really need to identify the risk. We really need to understand that what is the baseline inventory that exists within my environment, and then look for the loopholes, the hardening, the misconfigurations issues that exist within my environment. We fix those gaps during the prevent cycle. And those, since there is no silver bullet, if there are some breach, or there is some attack that started within my organization, I should have capability to stop that attack or to stop that breach during the early cycle of the cyber kill chain. So I should have capability to detect and respond these attacks in a continuous way. So that is what today we are going to target. In our today's discussion, we are going to discuss that while we discover these attacks, we really need to understand certain critical process like threat hunting. Threat hunting is one of the process with which I can develop a proactive mindset, look for these threats within my environment, and then define that how do I need to take it forward. Now, before I do that, let's do I would say let's define what is cyber threat hunting. Now, cyber threat hunting is nothing but it's just a process of, I would say, proactive searching through my network to detect and isolate the advanced threat rather that evade the existing security solution. Okay, rather than looking that this went wrong within my environment and then starting the analysis, it is really a high time wherein we really need to look into our environment, see that what are the gaps within my environment, what are the misconfiguration that exist, how this can be exploited by an attacker. So actually we have to develop a mindset of an attacker that okay, these are the, if I were an attacker, what are the possible misconfiguration that exist, how can I exploit them? So this is where threat hunting differs in a, I would say, in a reactive way, wherein I continuously look for these patterns of activity, intelligence, and then once I look for these, I see that what are the possible ways which can be exploited, and then look for the ways that how can we harden them, and what are the different kind of tools that gives this kind of a capability and can to deliver this effectively is one of the tool called EDR, endpoint detection and response. Because how this tool works is that this tools gives you a lot of visibility. tool once deployed across the endpoint environment, this tool kind of capture all the endpoint telemetry, your network connections, your script load, your process connections, your command line executions. So you will have an inventory of each and every activity which is happening over that environment, over that particular endpoint. Now, once you have those, I would say, data, what EDR does is EDR, kind of integrates that data with the threat intelligence, with your indicators of compromise, indicators of attacks, and then brings out that intelligence that, what's going wrong within your environment. And then it is not just that, I would say, as a threat hunter, I can start my threat hunting looking at, the multiple inbuilt suggestions which are already there as part of the tool. If I really want to see that, while PowerShell as a legit tool is allowed to run within my environment, but can I go ahead and see across my environment that is PowerShell trying to scrape the memory of another process within my organization? Is PowerShell trying to, go to GitHub and trying to download a Mimikatz kind of a tool, which is trying to dump credential across my environment? So I can look out for these, suspicious or malicious activity by the way of, performing threat hunting within my environment. And threat hunting can be based on new research. It could be based on new breach or any odd activity that I have seen within my environment. So we really need to have a methodology. We really need to have right technologies and tools, highly skilled personnel who are able to understand that, what are these different log sources, what are these multiple threat intel, how are they communicating to each other to understand the entire cyber kill chain, and then do a drill down analysis to perform a complete RC, root cause analysis, within a specific threat incident that has happened across your environment. Now, if I really want to talk about and see that, what are the triggers for threat hunt? Now, triggers for threat hunt could be multiple. That, it could be an alert to an administrator. It could be an alert showing that how come 80% of the bandwidth has been utilized by a single user all of a sudden at an odd hours. Or you see that, a log on from a malicious IP has been detected. Or if you see, then say, for example, if you see there is a machine that is only supposed to be logged from one account has been logged, by 13 different accounts, then all of a sudden you see that, something fishy or malicious is going on. Either those 13 machines have been compromised. So even that could become a baseline for you or hypothesis for you to start your threat hunt. Now, to perform the threat hunt, you could have multiple sources. It could be, your multiple log sources, like, your SIM alerts, your endpoint security sources, your vulnerability assessment feeds, your email logs. So multiple sources can become a part of your, the source feed as part of your threat hunting activity. Now, if I really want to take it forward and start that, if I were a threat hunter, how would I start this exercise? Now, to start that, I really need to form a hypothesis and test. It could be in the form of anything that, if I have seen that, there's a PowerShell which is trying to go to GitHub and trying to download a Mimikatz kind of a script, I really need to see whether this kind of an activity that I have seen, this is malicious. Now, once I have formed a hypothesis to understand, to look into the behavior of PowerShell, I will like to map that activity on a threat framework. Now, threat framework could be, starting from your Maitre, could be, your Lockheed Martin, could be your cyber kill chain kind of a threat framework, to understand and see if I am at, at one step of a threat framework, what could be the next possible I would say, step for an attacker. If I'm trying to do a reconnaissance or if I'm trying to build a persistence, then I am able to understand that, okay, the next step for me, after building the persistent is to do the privilege escalation. So that is where, mapping it on a threat framework will help me understand the next step from an attacker perspective, and to maintain that holistic perspective, to understand that, I am not just counting on my endpoint security, but rather than looking it from a holistic perspective of my network, for a specific, incident that has happened within my environment. So say, for example, if an incident with respect to PowerShell has happened within my environment, I will try to correlate it, how it, evaded my firewall. Are there any alerts from the NIDS or from a HIPS perspective? Are there any, playbooks which are defined from the SIM source for that particular action? So I will maintain a holistic perspective to understand that, if there is a security incident that has happened, how it evaded the other security tools within my environment, and what it is trying to do across my environment. Is it trying to do a lateral movement across my environment? How many other systems have been impacted? So I will be able to understand the overall scope of an incident. And then very important part of this effective threat hunting process is to know your environment. Before I go ahead and say that, this attack has actually impacted my environment, I should able to understand that what are the critical assets, what are the operating systems, what are the crown jewels of my organizations. Because if I don't do that, attackers anyway is going to scan my environment. So it is really important to know your environment, know that baseline inventory that my environment, and then protect my crown jewels accordingly, and then narrow down my focus in terms of that what went wrong, how it started within my organization, do the complete root cause analysis, and then hardening of my systems as a continuous exercise, so that I make sure that next time it should not happen again across my environment. And it has to be a continuous exercise. So if I have to map it with respect to different steps, I will say with respect to an example that as an early process, if we take PowerShell as an example, we really need to start our threat hunting process by determining that what are the legitimate uses of the PowerShell, and if there are some malicious users, we really need to filter out the legit activity, basically removing all the false positive and finding only the malicious activity or the suspicious activity. So basically what we are doing is, we are, as a threat hunter, I'm refining my hunt to only those suspicious and malicious actions of the PowerShell that has taken across my environment. And then when I see that these were the malicious events with respect to the PowerShell, then next thing that I'm going to do is that how it started within my organization. What was the root cause behind it? Was it flash kind of an application? Was it a phishing email which, once clicked by the user, downloaded a malicious script which actually invoked PowerShell to go to the GitHub and downloads Mimica kind of a tool? So this could be anything. We really need to identify that root cause. What was that root cause, so that I can take the next step. I can perform the response and remediation, and I can do the continuous improvement. So once I have identified that this is a malicious activity within my environment, the next step that I'm going to take is that I need to contain the attack as soon as possible. I need to identify the scope of an attack and see that how many systems have been attacked, have been impacted. Okay, and at a single click, is there a possibility that I can isolate the machine, meaning which that that machine loses the network connectivity, and as a security admin, I can perform multiple remediation action on that particular machine. And once the machine is kind of clean, and then I bring the machine back to the network. So that is where I can perform the remediation. And then, as part of continuous improvement, because see, our systems have breached. Okay, now if I see that it was the cause for that threat was a phishing email, that means that as a next step, I need to perform a continuous improvement, and performing a refresher training for the entire IT staff that I have, even that could be a form of a continuous improvement across my environment. So idea is that we need to continuously harden our defenses, look for those insecure configurations that exist within my environment, so that I make sure that I hunt my environment for any abnormal activity for a continuous improvement. So that's how you execute a threat hunt in a more proactive way, rather than something going wrong and then you start looking into that how it went wrong and what went wrong. Now, to deliver this kind of activity, we have some advanced tools like EDR, endpoint detection and response, and that really gives you a capability to have a complete process tree kind of a view. So this is, as you see on the screen, is kind of a process tree which shows you that say, for example, there is a process, parent process Outlook, which actually invoked another child process like Excel. Okay, and Excel is trying to invoke our another process called PowerShell. Now, this definitely look malicious, because by default PowerShell should not be launched with an Excel. By enabling the macro, if the PowerShell is getting launched and then PowerShell is trying to execute another command line script, which may be anything like scrapping your memory, which could be going to the GitHub, trying to download another malicious script. This really gives you a capability from an EDR perspective to understand the behavior. What was the parent process that executed the child process like this? How which system did it happen? What were the MD5 hashes with respect to that? At what time did it started? So at a click of a button, I will have a complete endpoint telemetry to perform a complete alert triage in terms of how it started, when it started, which child process it trying to do, what it is trying to do, and then on top of that, today we really need to map it with respect to any threat framework. Like I said, MITRE could be one of the industry framework which can be used to understand the attacker's TTP across your environment. So this really gives me a visibility to understand the behavior rather than just looking at it from a perspective that, while all these are trusted tools within my organization like PowerShell, Excel, none of them are, blocked within my organization. But from a behavior perspective, out of these activity, which activity should be allowed and which activity should be blocked within my environment. And then, as I said, it's really important to look at and map the entire threat hunting process with respect to a common security language. And we need to know that, there is definitely a security language that exists today that is used to emulate adversaries' behavior. Okay, and this, as I explained earlier, is nothing but your MITRE. MITRE, as we all know, is globally accessible knowledge base of attackers' TTPs. Okay, so we can use this knowledge base as a foundation for the development of specific threat models, methodologies. It really helps for the SOC team to perform the gap analysis of your security controls. It is getting continuously and globally updated on a day-to-day basis to understand that, if there are new attack vectors, attacker groups which are, continuously updating their TTPs, so we can make use of it. We can integrate with our existing SOC tools like your SIEM, SOAR, endpoint security, EDR, XDR. So we can actually effectively understand the attacker's behavior here. And the next part is that, while we integrate it, we really need to understand that, how we are doing it. Now, as you see on the screen, this is nothing but a pyramid of pain. And pyramid of pain was actually introduced to define that, while for an attacker, it is relatively easy to change things like, your hash values, IP, domains, network host, but to change a TTP is pretty difficult. Now, integrating a threat hunting program with a framework like MITRE will really help you to understand the hunt for these adversaries TTPs. Okay, with the help of MITRE, you will be able to develop a hypothesis. You will be able to understand that, what are the next possible attack sources that the attacker might look for. So this is where, if you look from a MITRE website, mitre.org, you'll be able to perform that, what are the different TTPs that exist within their framework and how effectively this can be mapped within my SOC environment. So from a key takeaways and next steps, I'll say that, it is really important as an endpoint security analyst or, as a SOC analyst for me is to start seeing everything. As a SOC analyst, it's really important to look into my environment to identify what are the baseline inventory that exists within my environment. The first step is start, which means that, I identify looking that, what exists within my environment. And then while I have the existing tools like, your NGAV, but we really need to stop assuming. We really need to question everything. We really need to perform a proactive process like threat hunting using some of the industry tools like EDR, NDR, and XDR to understand the attacker behavior. Because we really need to go beyond that signature-based approach. We really need to look upon, how the behavior of the trusted tools can impact my environment. Is this something which should be allowed within my environment, or is it based on, the behavior should be, prevented across my environment? So that is where, I need to stop assuming, look for, these suspicious behavior, and then stop assuming that, this could be, I would say, a legit activity. Rather, I really need to look into the behavioral based analytics and perform the next step. And then, as I said, that, it has to be a continuous approach. It cannot be a proactive approach where I say that, okay, something went wrong and then I start analyzing. Rather, as a proactive step, I will put myself into a threat hunter shoes and see that, if these are some insecure configuration during the identify phase, if I have identified, then what can possibly go wrong within my environment? I will create a hypothesis of the existing tools and see, how badly this can be, misused or exploited by an adversary. So that is where, I need to develop a proactive approach, proactive mindset for doing the threat hunting within my organization. So this brings me towards the end. And with that, I would like to wish everyone a very happy International Day to all the participants, to all the women globally. Today, we should strongly pledge to break the bias. And, we really need to have a gender equality kind of environment throughout our. So with that, thank you so much to all the viewers, to all the participants.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This was such an absolutely mind-blowing session because you put all the things so perfectly, pointing out the challenges or how they can get prepared, how organizations have to prepare from what point to what point is something that was absolutely key takeaways of this particular session. We have a few questions from the audience. Ma'am, apart from whatever qualifications usually people have to pursue a career in threat hunt or endpoint security, what are the key skills you think are important for a threat hunter?
Absolutely. So I would say, from a threat hunting perspective, you really need to understand from a skill perspective, I would suggest that, the participants should look for, some of the key testing methodologies, like, looking for, the vulnerabilities that exist from a vulnerability assessment point of view, pen testing as a skill, looking for that, how this, if I have identified a vulnerability, how this vulnerability can be exploited. So going a step further, understanding the vulnerabilities, understanding the pen testing as a process. So I would say, from a ethical hacking is one of the, I would say, is one of the processes, one of the key skill which is required. So once you go through that, ethical hacking as a training, as a course, you'll be able to understand that, what are the various possible ways that you can actually perform and you can actually exploit a system. I would rather, suggest all the, from a skill perspective, to install Kali Linux in your environment. I personally, do that when I used to give demos, because while delivering demos, you have to actually run a lot of your these malwares, ransomwares across your environment. So I have a demo environment where I keep on doing a lot of, these exercises to test the tools. So Kali Linux is one of the tools where you can actually download most of these tools in a demo environment. I would suggest, to create your demo labs so that it does not impact your, your own setup, and then start testing these tools and then see that, what is the behavior, how you can actually make use of tools like Covert Strike, Metasploit, which can be used to see the adversary behavior. And then go through the Maitre training. It's a, a free course on Cybrary as well. So you'll have a great insight there as well, understanding the TTPs that are normally used by the, to understand the adversary behavior.
Wow. So, ma'am, apart from this, if a fresher wants to start a career in cybersecurity or endpoint security, so is it possible, even if they do not have any IT background, maybe in the beginning, how can they start? Is that possible?
Absolutely. So for that, what I would suggest is, to understand the foundation of security. It is very important to understand, your existing the security concepts, because you really need to have fundamentals around, that how your overall network works. What is the OSI model? What are these security threats? What are the different protocols? At which layer does it exist? So I would suggest you to start from any baseline courses. There are plenty which exist today. You can start from, like, as I mentioned, that, Cybrary is one of the website which has got many baseline courses which are available. Then you have multiple others as well that exist. If you want, if anyone is interested, they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I can refer them. I have a couple of them which are already there with me. I can share them, the free training courses and the websites wherein, they can log in and have an access to that.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. I would like to know, in your career, what were the few challenges that you have faced while pursuing this career?
So personally, I would say that, pursuing cybersecurity was, I would say, as a passion for me, because this field really is, I would say, keeps on evolving. It keeps on, changing. The new threats are evolving. So it really gives you a chance to learn always something new. Okay, it's not something that today when we hear about AI ML, but when we start implementing it in the cybersecurity, it makes a lot of difference actually. So for me, For me, the biggest thing was that, I would say, the encouragement was that, or the challenge was that, I was, when I started my career, I was the only female, I could see very few women colleagues around me. So that was, I would say, one of the few challenges. But then if you trust your dreams and you keep on doing and, delivering your best, I think no one can stop you. So I would say, keep believing yourself and trust that, whatever you are doing great in your journey. Having that belief in yourself is something which is a big motivation for you. And then today you have a lot of security mentors, industry speakers. If you reach out, I'm sure, they are going to handhold you and suggest you what is the best possible path for you to take forward.
Thank you so much for that answer, ma'am. There's one more question here. What are the effective ways to strengthen SOC security?
Absolutely. So, when it comes to strengthening SOC security, the one of the critical way is definitely, as we spoke about, it has to be a built-in process. It has to, rather than being a threat-centric, it has to be a context-centric approach. It has to be, security has to be seen as a team sports. Okay, it cannot be seen as a siloed approach. When people talk about security, they think that, oh, this is another difficult thing that we need to manage. It should not become such kind of a thought. It should rather become a team sport. We really need to work together. We really need to, take care of the application security team. We really need to look into the IT team, which is managing the desktop. We really need to manage the infosec team, which is managing our critical security devices. So it has to be a integrated and a holistic approach rather than, I would say, a siloed approach. So once we achieve that, holistic visibility, management of security becomes easier, because that's where, you are kind of integrating your security tool with the rest of the security stack. And that gives me a, complete visibility to understand that, what's going within my environment. From a SOC management perspective, believe me, from a CISO perspective, this is one of the biggest challenge. So if we make it a part of a holistic security, our a SOC team is able to identify and see that, what is going across my environment, and is able to take better steps towards management.
Thank you so much for that answer, ma'am. There's one more question here. What are critical security capabilities of endpoint security solutions that organizations must consider for unified visibility?
Absolutely. I think this is a relevant question. So from a critical security perspective, see, we really need to understand that, attacks have become more and more sophisticated and stealthy. Today, the attackers, they are not something that, they are launching an attack and they are just vanishing. They may sleep, they may come within your environment. The attacker may sleep within your environment for 2 weeks, for a month. So we really need to understand that the behavior of an attack, that, how it started within my organization. I, rather than just having a antivirus kind of a capability, I really need to augment that capability with a EDR kind of a tool, with a, vulnerability assessment kind of a tool, with a, I would say, HIPS kind of a capability. So looking into an environment, understanding the threat vectors, what are, the critical assets of an organization, we really need to augment the simply, the endpoint security by adding capabilities like EDR, XDR, NDR, as well as, HIPS, that really gives capability to strengthen the security posture of an organization.
Thank you, ma'am. One last question, as we are asking, what are common challenges being faced by SOC team and how can we simplify them?
Absolutely. So I would say, some time back, this was strongly felt that, the SOC team, they are facing this biggest issue of burnout. Even not sometime, I would say, even day in, day out today as well. The SOC teams are highly under pressure because every now and then we see that, specifically the ransomware attacks making headlines. So how do we make sure that, our environment, see, nobody can guarantee that security breach will not happen in my environment. There is no such silver bullet that exists, which I say that, you implement this and you will be, there's a guarantee that nothing will go wrong within your environment. So that is where, we really need to understand that, we have to develop a mindset that, rather than getting reactive, we really need to become a proactive approach. We really need to adopt a threat hunting as a process to understand our environment, to look into the possible malicious ways of trusted application within my environment, build that hypothesis, understand that what are the suspicious or malicious activities that exist within my environment, how they originated, harden my defenses, and then make it a part of continuous improvement across my organization. So this is where a mind shift is required by becoming from reactive to proactive, adopting these threat hunting as a proactive process to strengthen my SOC.
Thank you so much, ma'am. One last question from my side. As a woman, what advice would you give other women looking for a career in this?
I think I'll suggest everyone to this being today International Women's Day, I will strongly suggest you to go beyond your abilities. Don't restrict yourself. Dream big, okay, and go beyond your abilities. If you think that I can do this, believe in yourself. Even sky is not a limit for you. So you are here because you have to deliver a purpose of your life. So make most of your life and keep learning, because learning is very critical in today's environment. Don't restrict yourself. Continuous upskillment is required. Specifically, I would say cybersecurity is one of the domain, but I strongly feel that continuous upskillment is a need of an hour for today's young generation. So keep on upskilling yourself, and you'll see that you'll be among the topmost workers of the professionals of the day.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your valuable time. And you've explained the endpoint detection response so well, given ample reasons why it is important to have good strategies and good mind, where you have to be on your toes every time. You have to be ready for everything. You have also pointed out the triggers for threat hunt and how you can overcome all these critical issues at the endpoint. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks a lot for taking so much of an effort and addressing our audience today. Thank you so much on this Women's Day. Please stay tuned with us for the next few minutes for the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much, team.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing an important message with our stakeholders across the globe.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to meet you once again, and we'll catch up regarding other initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate your kind support. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Now over to Suruchi to thank our mentors.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir. And a bigger thank you to our keynote speaker. Please allow me to take a few moments to thank my mentors and supporters for the event. We are blessed for the constant support and encouragement from Honorable Professor Dr. Mangesh Karaj, sir, Executive President and Vice Chancellor, MIT ADT University. A big thank you to our mentors, Dr. Anand Chakradev, sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Mahesh Chopre, sir, Registrar, MIT ADT University, for the constant cooperation and motivation in such events. I extend my sincere appreciation to all the deans, directors, HOIs, and HODs at MIT ADT University. Your support encourages us to progress and flourish. I'm thankful to our ecosystem partners who supported and guided us throughout the International Virtual Summit. A huge thank you to our knowledge partners, University at Buffalo, Blockchain Think Lab, California Science and Technology University, Center for Finance, Technology and Entrepreneurship, and Natalie EV Consulting. To our technology partners, Asset Rush, Kaleido, Big ID, Paymonk, Innovise, Steezy, Settlement, Securo, Robotex India, and Radicad. To our education partners, Microsoft, Salesforce, Atos, SAP, Edupeer, AI Beehive, CloudThat, Skills Factory. Thank you to our community partners, OSWAP Org Foundation, Women in Cybersecurity and Privacy, InfoSec Girls, India Blockchain Forum, Global Blockchain Business Council, Women in Blockchain Talks, and MKAI. A huge thank you to our innovation partners, AIC Incubator Forum and Cerebro Spark Innovations LLP. to our certification partner, True Scholar, and a big thank you to our digital marketing partner, Brand Neeti, Integrated Strategic Advertising and Media Agency. Finally, I would like to thank the audience from the bottom of my heart who took out their precious time and joined us today. I request you to kindly share your valuable feedback. The link will be shared in the chat box soon, or you could also look up it on the screen. Please note that the plethora of sessions that are lined up for today can be seen on your screens shortly, or you could visit them on www.mitfutureskills.org/WFET. Let us meet you again on the same link at 12 p.m. for the session Past, Present, and Future of Application Security by Ms. Sajjad Valamudi, AppSec Lead and Senior Director, SAP Labs India, and Founder, Women in Cybersecurity and Privacy. We hope to see you very, very soon. And once again, thank you, ma'am, for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Neha.
Thank you so much.
We are looking forward to host you here at MIT University as well.
Definitely, ma'am. I'll try to be there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Suruchi. Thank you, all the team members. Yeah.
Have a great day, ma'am.
Thank you. Same to you.